This is one of the most important meetings given the increasingly challenging context of the international trade. And we will start with the EU-U.S. relations, where we noted with regret and disappointment the letter sent by the United States President to the European Union, especially considering the advanced stage of our ongoing negotiations. As you know, the European Union has approached these talks in a good faith and with full intensity throughout. So let's be honest, an idea of 30% tariff rate is effectively prohibitive to the mutual trade. We remain convinced that our transatlantic relationship deserved a negotiated solution, one that builds the basis for renewed stability and cooperation. And that is why we continue to engage with the United States administration and prioritize negotiated solutions by the new deadline of the August 1st. I intend to speak with my US counterparts again later today, as I cannot imagine walking away without genuine effort. Having said that, the current uncertainty caused by unjustified tariffs cannot persist indefinitely, and therefore we must prepare for all outcomes, including, if necessary, well-considered, proportionate countermeasures to restore the balance in our transatlantic relationship. I will be discussing with the ministers the next steps for the upcoming weeks. I see these focused on 4 areas: negotiations, rebalancing measures, engagement with like-minded partners, and diversification of our trade. And on the last point, I just want to emphasize that we are doubling down on efforts to open new markets. The political agreement in the negotiations of EU-Indonesia trade and investment agreement reached and announced yesterday is the latest tangible example of these efforts. This is a major milestone in the negotiations process that has lasted 9 years, and I greatly appreciate the leadership and cooperation of my counterpart, Minister Erlangga Hartarto, because Indonesia is one of the world's largest economy with a GDP of 1.2 trillion euros. It's the EU's 5th largest trading partner in Southeast Asia and a fast-growing market of over 280 million people. Also, in this case, our agreement will be a game changer, taking the EU-Indonesia trade and investment relationship to an entirely new level. And to conclude, let me underline that the EU is and will remain fully united in responding to the current challenges, and I appreciate the strong and continuous support of our member states for the Commission.
Commissioner, could you give us a sense as to the... Thank you. Commissioner, could you explain to us what you'd like to push forward in terms of coordination with other like-minded countries, with Japan, with Canada, and so on? What shape it's going to take, and when are you? Why the change of strategy there?
I think it was never a change of strategy. We've been always talking to our major trading partners, especially those from G7. I think now what is happening is that there is this new sense of urgency because 1st of August is around the corner, so we are talking to each other a lot. But of course today I will focus most primarily on making sure that with the trade ministers we have strong unity behind the continuous negotiations, or if necessary, these rebalancing measures which we are putting on the table as we speak.
Commissioner, last week it seemed really hopeful. Everyone was optimistic that there'd be a deal. Right now, and there seems to be in your demeanour some sense of like, this isn't great. You're going to speak to your US counterparts later today.
Yeah.
What are you going to say? What are you going to tell them? Because haven't they let you down? Or the EU, I mean.
I already spoke with them, the last week almost every other day, and you're absolutely right. The feeling on our side was that we are very close to an agreement. I mean, we have been negotiating this agreement in principles for weeks, and I think that we've been almost there. And of course, there have been some sectoral issues upon which we've been negotiating. So my sense was we are approaching, the good outcome for both sides. I appreciate, though, that I was getting the heads up just before the letter was coming. And of course, I clearly recorded my disappointment about this measure because it puts us into a totally different dynamic. But nevertheless, I felt also from my United States counterparts that despite that letter, they are ready to continue the negotiations. We, of course, will use that opportunity because I'm absolutely 100% sure that negotiated solution is much better than the tension which we might have after the 1st of August if we will not land this one.
Commissioner, obviously you've already mentioned after August 1 we might be facing tariffs of 30%, especially if the EU decides now to, well, which it has decided to delay countermeasures. Are these tariffs something that you're willing to accept as a price for not reacting now with countermeasures immediately?
30% or anything about 30%. So eventually any additional counteraction from the United States, it has more or less the same effect. So it's practically it prohibits the trade. So if you're talking about 30% or 30% plus, there will be a huge impact on trade. It will be almost impossible to continue the trading as we are used in a transatlantic relationship. And if you look at the impact this would have, so I have to say the transatlantic supply chains would be heavily affected on both sides of Atlantic. They definitely don't want it. Show me one industrial leader who is happy about this tariff policy. So therefore, we feel the huge responsibility for the biggest trading relationship on this planet. $1.7 trillion, $400 billion flying across the ocean every single day in the form of goods and services. So therefore, we are showing this enormous patience, enormous creativity to find the solutions. But if it stays 30 plus, simply the trading as we know it, will not continue with a huge negative effect on both sides of the Atlantic. And therefore, I think we have to do, and I will definitely do everything I can to prevent this super negative scenario. Thank you very much. I have to see you at the press conference. Bye-bye.